I'm a pretty big TMNT fan. I've read most of the comics, I've watched every watchable incarnation. So what are my thoughts on Mutant Mayhem? Let's start with the plot. The plot revolves around the Ninja Turtles being stuck in the sewer for years because Splinter, he's pretty racist to humans, he discriminates against them. So because of that, the Turtles are only allowed to leave to steal food, not even joking. But whenever they do leave, they goof around a lot, and whenever they were goofing around, they ended up meeting April, and April's not very popular, and the Turtles aren't very popular with humans, so they thought they could become practical superheroes in order to become popular and well-liked. So they decide that since a guy named Superfly is doing technological heists, they're gonna go out of their way and stop them, and then be the heroes that everyone adores. That's the plot, but it doesn't really work. The plot beats are mostly ruined, or at least made nonsensical at times due to forced humor. Like Splinter falling on his face during an entrance that he triggered of his own volition, and then fighting like a pro, then randomly running away like he can't fight, to then fighting like he never should have ran away. Or April's entire plotline, which is about her puking. That's not even a joke. They ruin that by the end, just for a joke. Even moments where jokes that weren't even funny go on for way too long, and it doesn't even make sense. It not only hurts the pacing, but it really messes with tension and hurts a lot of the more emotional moments that should have some resonating effects. There are also too many pop culture references, and although some of them did land and feel natural, many of them didn't. It made some of the dialogue feel wonky and also took a lot of attention away from, I don't know, actual development of the characters. Speaking of the characters, let's just go ahead and talk about them. I made my video predicting that April wasn't going to be the character that we all know and love. And I was right. Although she does have some good moments sprinkled throughout, she doesn't really do anything that feels earned. And as I said, they ruin her plotline by making a joke whenever it is not needed. Whenever she is supposed to have overcome something, they literally ruin it for a haha funny moment. She doesn't really retain much of what makes April April besides wanting to be a journalist, which is reminiscent of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. There's a lot of references with her, like going into the Channel 6 news building, her yellow jacket, that kind of stuff, but she kinda just feels like she does whatever the plot needs her to, and that she's in the way more often than not. There's a moment where she says something to Leo that's supposed to be an emotional, pivotal moment, but given actions after that, it ruins it. Oh, the writing is just really bad here. I wish I could spoil it, but I'm not going to in this video. Let's just move on to somebody else. Wingnut, they ruined Wingnut. It wasn't a new take on the character, but instead an entirely new character with nothing in common with the old ones, a pointless gender swap as well. Where the heck was Screwloose? Where was Screwloose? They're literally a freaking combo. They're a package deal. Ugh. Another big L. Leatherhead is also a gender swap. Woo! Great design, but doesn't really feel like an imposing force that Leatherhead always is. Just a stereotype with no real backbone, another miss. Genghis Frog, I actually don't mind this incarnation. Genghis always starts as a villain and ends as a hero, and although having a mostly different personality, there's a few moments that feels just right. It's a different take, but not too far off the beaten trail. I liked him for what he was. Mondo Gecko, they did really well with this one, especially since it actually felt like him. Same fundamental character, and his interactions with Mikey are beyond golden. This was a W, I'll give him this one. Ray Fillet wasn't bad, definitely a different take, but he seemed to have remnants of his fundamental character, even if at the end of the day they made some big changes. I wish they kept the moralistic integrity that he normally had, instead of focusing so much on a more self-centered mindset. The Utroms could have been an entirely different organization, and only had the same name as the Utrom race, so they can say they had him in the Dablé movie. They didn't even show up when it was most necessary, and felt like a plot device more than anything else. Disappointing beyond belief. Bebop and Rocksteady were iffy. They weren't the brightest bobs in the box, which fits their characters well, but they didn't quite feel alright and never got time to shine. Also, Bebop is originally a black man before he mutates. His name is a homage to the culture of music that is deeply rooted in African American heritage. So somebody tell me why the whitest man is voicing him? Such a disservice, right? Baxter Stockman is another L. Saying why is a spoiler, so I'll leave it for my next video if I decide to make one. Superfly was cool, a reference to Baxter Stockman's fly mutation, but Ice Cube brought him to life pretty well. His character's character was a mess by the end, but he was entertaining at least. It was a risky direction, and although not handled perfectly, did work for the most part. Splinter grew on me, but did get a bit slowed by the joke problem I mentioned earlier. He was also pretty discriminatory, which although made sense and could have worked, ended up getting focused on far too much and feeling very forced in. They brought it around a decent way, but dang was it a rocky way to get to that point. The Turtles were a mixed bag. The voice actors did well, the designs were good, but them stealing was weird. Their motivations were all wrong, which is the point of the movie, yes, but ruins the point of them being, I don't know, ninjas in the first place, which left them feeling like MCU heroes but with ninja weapons instead. If this is another one-off film, then sure, that'll work, but to set up sequels, it was a baffling decision. Thankfully though, the voice cast really do carry them all the way, as well as the animators that make perfect use of the emotional scenes, same with the action ones. Overall, I do think this is a decent movie. It's not awful, it's not great. It has expert choreography, some good emotional moments, some awesome animation, but everything feels rushed, the jokes are far too forced in, there's too much included and too much is sacrificed or changed for unknown and bizarre reasons. Random race and gender swaps that add nothing to characters, random character moments, even pivotal ones ruined for jokes, and more that drags this movie down from being as good as the great moments say that it could have been. It's dumb fun, for one viewing or maybe two, with some good references and some good fight scenes that do save it from being awful. It's above average, but only barely, and hard to recommend by being more style than it is substance. Then the inclusion of language, sexuality, and other things like it gives me reason to why I can't even recommend it as a kids movie either. It's too mature for kids and too immature for thinking adults. The permanent teenager dropped the ball on this one. As an introductory to TMNT for people that know literally nothing about it at all and have no prior experience with it though, I do believe that there is somebody out there that will decide to watch better versions of the Ninja Turtles or read comic books of Ninja Turtles because of this movie. But for veteran fans that actually know the lore, the background, know the characters, and plenty of incarnations, it's going to fall flat in a lot of different ways. I really feel like we should have focused on one bad guy, did the whole Bumblebee treatment, maybe give him two, instead of forcing so many characters in 1 hour and 30-minute experience. There was just far too much going on, and the motivations of the Turtles were just all over the dad blame place. Plus, they didn't even put frickin' Hamato Yoshi or Orokusaki or Orokusaki's brother. What was his name? Dokusaki? What was it? I'm having a brain fart. Whatever, it doesn't even matter. No Tengshi, none of them were included. There wasn't even a Karai. I don't know. I understand not putting Shredder in the first movie, but not hinting at him at all, not having Hamato Yoshi in it at all, not even the reason that Ninja Turtles are trained being any reference to Hamato Yoshi. That's baffling. That is baffling. I don't know. I was just really disappointed in this one. I had fun with it. I did enjoy it, and I'd give it, if I had to give it a number, it would be a 6 out of 10. It'd be 6.2 out of 10 if I could put points in there maybe. It's just not that good. People really overhyped it because of how amazing the animation is. Oh yeah, the soundtrack was really good too. I don't want to forget that. I really enjoyed just about every Dad Blame track in here, and there were some that were even better than others and fit into the scenes better than others, which given how banging it was, that's quite a compliment. So that tells you how good it was. Whoever did the music choice, I'll give you a lot of credit for that. Yep, that's all I gotta talk about. If I missed the character, then I probably didn't care enough to mention them, and they probably weren't important enough to warrant such a mention. So that's that. This is my non-spoiler hopefully review for TMNT Mutant Mayhem. I don't know, I'm very conflicted with it. This is literally being recorded right after I watched the film, and we'll see if I decide to make that big spoiler video where I go over all the references, all the good and bad moments with more detail and more evidence, where I can actually hop into the spoilers and dissect things in a way that I was doing while I was watching it. If you liked it, more power to you, let me know in the comments below. But for more news, reviews, and whatever we choose, stay tuned to Nerdsfeed. Have a great day. Thank you.